Hello, my name is Adam Bird. I'm a partner here at Dexia, and I'm the Director of Strategy. I also oversee the copy and content departments because those are right next to strategy. Today, we're going to be covering copywriting. Specifically, I'm hoping to give you some tools for navigating the complexities of copywriting, whether it's lead gen or e-commerce, and ultimately, really going over the fundamentals of persuasion and emotional engagement and how we use those tools to get people to do things with words. Copywriting is not like really most other kinds of writing. Copywriting is more of a building process than a flowing creative process. As Eugene Schwartz says, you do not write copy, you assemble it. You assemble it with building blocks and bricks, these individual pieces that you need, often from strategy, and also using your empathy and your understanding of the audience to put these words together. These words that are so important because they're going to be used in the script or the headline or the tagline or wherever language is necessary to promote the behavior that you need in your marketing audiences. Copywriting ultimately needs to be thought of as an additive assembling building process, not a get in the flow and be inspired. It's not creative writing. I get a lot of creative writers who apply for jobs here, and they have incredible writing that's very inspiring. But the process of creative writing is parallel to, it's adjacent to, but it isn't quite copywriting. There's a lot of core principles of copywriting. Too many to really cover in this video. But if there's one core principle that I want you to take away, it's features and benefits. This can be kind of tricky because features and benefits, they're right next to each other. They're really similar. And whether you're on an in-house team or whether you're at an agency, features are really what we do. The features are what the product teams develop, what the engineers make. It's what the service providers do. It's the literal thing that creates value that we are getting out into the world. But the reality is the audiences don't care about the features that much. They might want to check off the box to see that the feature is there, but what they're really driven by is the benefit. The benefit is not the thing. The benefit is the result of the thing. The feature is air conditioning in the car. You buy the car, it has a feature of air conditioning. Okay? But no one wants air conditioning. We want to be cool in hot weather. We want the benefit of air conditioning, the result of air conditioning, what happens after we have the air conditioning. That's what drives behavior. We have to think about what motivates and drives human behavior. And what motivates and drives human behavior is the thing they get in the end. It is not the tool that gets them there. And so when you're doing work, you're going to have to push hard on those benefits, even though the discussion internally is about features. When the people are developing value through the features, in the end, when we're writing copy, we need to be thinking about those benefits. Features and benefits are a powerful tool when used with audience analysis or audience understanding. You must understand your audience. Go talk to them. Don't just run quantitative efforts like surveys and polls and reading analysis and reports from the usual suspects. Go have words with them. Listen to them. Who is it that's buying your product or service? What are the pains that they have? Find out from them, how do they experience that pain? What are the things that happen to them that tell them that they have that problem that you're solving in the first place? Ask them, what do they desire? What do they want? And take it further. We aren't motivated just by what we want. We're motivated by what it means after we get it. We're all motivated for higher pay or more time off, but what does that mean? Higher pay means we get to buy more things. We get to do more experiences with our family. More time off means more experience with our family. More time to do leisure activities. Those are the things that drive people. Great copywriting recognizes this. Watch almost any marketing by Disney. They're not talking about how great Disney is. They're talking about how amazing your time with your family is going to be. And they're showing you. And that is great copywriting. They're making you feel the emotion so that you know if you go to that theme park, you're going to feel the emotion that you saw in the ad. But you need copywriting to craft that ad in the first place. This is how important audience is. Go and listen to them, talk to them, embrace a qualitative approach. You don't need to talk to everybody. This isn't about statistics. This is about human psychology. Who are they? What do they experience? What drives them? What motivates them? What kind of emotions do they feel now? And what kind of emotions do they want to feel? There are more positive emotions after they've purchased your product or service. That is audience analysis. At least that's how we think audience analysis is. It's a blend of qualitative and quantitative. It's creating instincts for who these personas are so that we are most able to engage with them and craft the language that promotes the behavior that we need. Copywriting is taking audiences on an emotional journey. All audiences, all copywriting. And I know this is a big sweeping generalization, but bear with me. Emotions are how humans make decisions. We make decisions universally because of how we feel about the decision. When we feel certain preconditioned emotions that after we make this decision our life will somehow be improved, then we make that decision and we move forward. This is universal. This is everybody. People in D2C are used to this. We use emotional language all the time when we're doing e-commerce. You will have this better life, you will feel better, you will do better. One way or another, some sort of positive emotional increase or momentum after people make the purchase decision. We make that promise, and then we fulfill it when their lives are genuinely improved by the service or product that we're marketing. But this is just as true for B2B audiences as well. They make emotional decisions too. The difference between the two is in how you pull the lever that makes them feel the thing. Our business audiences feel those emotions when they see EBITDA numbers, when they see spreadsheets, when they see percentages. It makes them feel the feels. But it's a very different tool than on the e-commerce or on the direct-to-consumer side. It's important to understand that while those tools look different, while they appear different, while the packaging is different, the language is different, the presentation is different, in the end, we're still doing the same thing. We're getting the audience to feel what they need to feel to move forward with the decision making. And the techniques for doing this are the same everywhere. Doesn't matter where you're presenting them. Who are they? Using your audience analysis and understanding, using what you get about their pain and about their problems and about what they want, all of those things. What do they feel now? And then what do they want to feel in the future? What does that feeling mean to them? That's where you take the copy. And then, this is the trick, you do that and you combine it with what I call signaling language. Everybody is always looking for signaling language that tells them that what they're reading or what they're listening to or who they're talking to is a part of their group. So for example, if it's a CPA, signaling language would be someone talking about dual ledger accounting. When it's in business, someone talks about EBITDA. When it's in sports, someone talks about batting averages. There's different words that people on the inside use. And when they use that, it signals to other people, hey, I'm on the inside of this group. And that's how we get through the noise. When we use that signaling language that people are looking for, that people are alert for, that will trigger them to pay attention, that's what gets us in and lets us really move in with that emotional language. Or it might not necessarily be emotional language, but it could be whatever other non-emotional language will in the end trigger emotions. That's the trick, is it's not about emotional language, it's about language that makes people feel emotions. That's so important. I'm going to come back to that one more time. It's not about using a language that is in itself inherently emotional. It's about using a language that we know will make our audience feel something, will relate to an emotion one way or another when they read it. That's the kind of language that we use. And when we combine that language with signals that this is for you, that we get you, that we understand you, when we put those together, then we wind up with very emotional journeys that do an incredible job of promoting human behavior. Understanding your audience and knowing what you need to make them feel, knowing the signaling language that you need to get through to them to show them that this is for you, that's great, that's important. But the way that we make that work together, the way that it actually functions is by stories. We have to tell stories. Storytelling is how we make that relatable journey for the audience. The before, the during, the after. We all use stories to make sense of the world and our place within it. At the end of the day, people go home and they talk to their partner about how their day went, or they go tell their friends about what happened to them or what they did to other people. These are the stories that we tell to make sense of the world, and we only make sense of the world when we tell those stories. Storytelling is incredibly important. It's the tool that brings these things together. But I want to be very clear, these are not long literature stories. It's not a 30-minute video. There's a great example of a Toyota ad that I really, really like. Toyota's advertising one of their crossover sport utilities. Just picture in your head any crossover sport utility with two bicycles on top, two mountain bikes. That's it. No background, no nothing, just a white sweep. And then the copy that goes with it, 4 out of 5 Toyota owners were too busy to take our survey. One more time. 4 out of 5 Toyota owners were too busy to take our survey. That's brilliant ad copy. You see its brilliance? It's brilliant because it's invisible. It just goes past. The story just gets in our brains. Really brilliant ad copy is invisible. We barely notice it because it just works. It's kind of like electricity and water, you know? It's doing what it's supposed to when we don't even notice it, when it's just there when we need it and doing its job. There's a before, right? There's the people who don't have the Toyota, who aren't on their mountain bikes, who aren't out having a good time, who aren't doing all the fun things, the people who are not too busy to take the survey. And then there's the people that are having so much fun, who are doing all these wonderful, incredible things, that they are too busy to take the survey. This is the after. It's an incredibly powerful, simple story. This is marketing stories. This is how we get in our audience's heads. This is how we get them to buy, is by telling these stories that package that signaling language with that emotional, with the words that we need, that triggers those emotional reactions that we need, those positive emotional reactions, ideally, that get them to do the behavior that we need. That's storytelling and copywriting. The other layer is, okay, how does the brand participate in the story? I want to go back to that Toyota ad. Toyota is not the hero of the story. The audience is the hero of the story. The audience is always the hero of the story, by the way. Toyota is the mentor. Toyota is the helper. Toyota is providing them with the tool to go out and adventure and do the things that make them too busy to take the survey. That's the role of Toyota in the ad. Toyota is the enabler. And one of the more powerful tools that we found for understanding how to bring the brand as a character into these stories is through the Jungian archetypes. There's a lot of resources on our website I invite you to check out, and there'll probably be a few that we'll put in your inbox after you watch this video. But knowing the archetype of your brand tells you what the brand's personality is. It tells you how the brand relates and engages with the audience. Attributes of your brand, the things that make it unique, differentiating features and benefits, all these things are incredibly important to use because this is very literally the stuff, the value that you make for your audience, but it's not the relationship you have with it. That's the archetype. A sage has one type of relationship with their audience, completely different than a caregiver, completely different than a jester. Each of them relates differently, and that relationship tells us, it provides profound direction on how to use that archetype, how to use that brand in the story. So the brand can be there clearly showing to audiences, this is who we are and this is what you can expect from us. We've been talking about a lot of different layers of copywriting, a lot of different tools. We've talked about story, we've talked about emotions, we've talked about their problems and their desires, but let's take the problems and desires a little bit further and let's talk about the problem-solution framework. The problem-solution framework is pretty self-evident in what it is. It is the problem and the solution. This is the problem the audience has, this is the solution that solves the problem. But the thing is, there's more to it than that. Identifying the problem isn't just identifying the problem for your audience. It's helping them know that you understand them. You understand their problem. You're in a unique position to get them, to know them. Because we all want to be understood. And especially when we're feeling negative emotions, when we're experiencing something difficult or challenging, no matter how big or how small, we want someone to go, I see you. I see what you're going through. I get it. We all want that validation. That's where audience analysis comes in. You have to identify the audience's problems because you need to articulate their problems. If you cannot articulate your audience's problems more clearly than they can, then you're probably going to be in trouble in your copywriting. Also, in identifying that problem, that's where we really can harness relevance and urgency. We are relevant to them when we can validate them in the problem they're experiencing. That's how we become relevant to them. That also is an incredibly powerful tool for the signaling language I mentioned just a minute ago. Identifying the problem, articulating it, writing about it clearly and what it means and what those challenges are and how it makes people feel. That's the good copywriting. That is the first part of the problem solution framework. The second part is the solution. We have to present them with the solution because they don't have it. If they did, then they wouldn't be qualified audience. We have to position the product or service as the solution using the benefits. What do they get afterwards? It's not the thing, it's the benefit of the thing. It's how the world is better as a result of the thing. We have to highlight that transformation in their desired outcome. And again, just like how important it is to articulate the problem in ways that are better than the audience can, you have to do the same thing with the desire, with that transformation, with that desired outcome. You have to do a better job of understanding the audience and being able to articulate the meaning of what they want than they do for themselves. And I promise you, if you do it well, then you're going to be enormously successful. But also, it's really hard. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Being able to clearly articulate, to have the eloquence and empathy to understand the audience so that you can say, I know what you're going through, I understand it, let me show you, I know what you want, I understand it, and I'm going to explain it to you. And when they see that and their understanding of the transformation, the desire blossoms and grows, when it becomes bigger than what they originally thought, oh man, now you've got them. Now you've got them good. When you can show them not just that they're going to get what they want, but that there is more and better than what they originally desired, then they're going to be really, really interested. Now you're doing some serious behavior promotion. They're going to be a lot more likely to get engaged and a lot more likely to buy. The last part of the problem solution framework is addressing objections. Common objections need to be overcome. There are, depending on who you read, and I'm not talking about sales objections. There's one book that says there's 11 sales objections. There's another book that says there's 41 sales objections. I'm talking about universal objections to a decision. There are 3 of them, by the way. The first objection is whatever it is, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Nope. The second one is, okay, it works, but not for me. And then the third objection is, okay, it works and it would work for me, but there is some sort of external factor, some sort of environmental thing, something that is preventing me from whatever. These are universal. This is every decision ever. These are the objections that all people have. Good marketing, really good marketing, takes care of those first 2 objectives preemptively. We overcome them and build trust and credibility before they get to that final purchase decision. Again, that problem solution framework is really important because that's how we overcome the objections of it doesn't work. Well, this is your problem, this is the solution, this is how that functions. We show them how those 2 are bridged together with whatever product or service you have. We start to overcome that objection that it doesn't work. Okay, it works, but not for me. Again, we tell them a story, that problem, that solution, that better transformation, that better world that they're in. We build that story, we assemble it, we put it in front of the audience, and they see it and they go, okay, that could work for me. Good marketing does that. Truly brilliant marketing overcomes the third objection, but that one is really hard because it requires incredibly narrow targeting of the audience. You have to understand at an almost individual level the objections that they have, the barriers that are between them and a purchase decision, but it's possible. Addressing objections is one of the key features of the problem solution framework, because when we tell people stories about the world they live in now, with the challenges and pains they have, the transformation they will have with our product or service, and what that means to them, that better positive self they have in the future. When we do a very good job of that, where we sympathize with them, where they see what we're writing or they listen to it and they go, that's for me, and they get me and they understand me and my challenges. When we do those right, then we are proactively addressing the common objections that people have, and we're building trust and credibility. We live in an era of mistrust, of misinformation, and so it is critical for anyone who's writing copy to overcome those burdens. We must have the people who are engaging with our marketing trust what we're saying. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but the most powerful ones revolve around proof, social proof, and testimonials. We don't always believe what a brand is telling us, but man, it is wild how much we believe what somebody else tells us about the brand, even people we don't know. This is why influencers are so profoundly powerful for marketing. I don't know this person, but this person is saying all sorts of well-informed, educated things about this brand that they ostensibly have no associations with. Thus, I will believe them. It's crazy, right? I don't know this person, but I trust them. We don't trust what others say, but we trust what others say about others. And so, carefully consider, how do you bring in social proof? How do you bring in testimonials into the stories that you're telling? How do you let other people tell the story? This is how we encourage trust. This is how we get it and maintain it. And the beautiful thing is, if you are using honest, good marketing, where you're just telling the truth about the transformation your product or service brings, then people are going to trust you over time, and then that trust is going to translate. It's going to spread. It's contagious. When one person trusts a brand, they tell someone else, I trust this brand, and it spreads, it grows, and more people do it. And the same thing, this is why there are certain brands that we don't trust. I'm going to pick on Comcast because they're one of the most unpopular companies in America. Comcast has a tagline that says, Comcast cares. I don't trust them. Why don't I trust them? Because they say they care, but when I'm on the phone with them, they don't care. This is this dissonance, this disconnect that makes it not work. Really good copywriting doesn't lie. Really good copywriting uses the truth. Truth is a very powerful tool, especially when it's other people's truths. And that's also how we can inspire people to action. Using truths, using testimonies, using social proof, using authority that others are giving to us voluntarily, that is how we can create compelling calls to action. A CTA isn't just buy, it isn't click. A CTA is transform, get better, experience the difference. Not every CTA is necessarily going directly to a behavior too. Some CTAs are just remember, think, engage, reflect. It's funny, if you do a really good job of building a compelling story for your marketing using copywriting, then the CTA is going to take care of itself. I have a lot of clients who have a lot of confusion over CTAs, or just have a lot of scattered thoughts on what is or isn't a good CTA. And my answer is, don't really think about that so much. Focus on your story. What's your story? What's the transformation? What's the before and the after? What's the narrative? How does this reach the audience? How does this engage the audience? What does it mean to them? It's not what it means to us. And when we do a good job of that, then the CTA becomes really, really simple. Those words will jump out at you. It becomes a straightforward problem. But only if you've done a good job of developing that story, of creating those different pieces that come together so that you can earn the trust of your audience. So if you have that trust, then the CTA is very, very simple. We've been layering on a lot of ideas, and I hope that this has been useful to you so far, but we're going to get into some much more nitty-gritty specifics. So let's first talk about headlines and hooks. We all know headlines, we all know hooks. It's an important part of copywriting. Even if you're not a copywriter, you know what these are because you're on the receiving end of them. Writing a really, really great headline is not writing a really great headline. It's writing 25 really great headlines. If you're really going for extra credit, maybe closer to 30 or 40. Write as many as you can. Don't try to write for good. Don't be clever. Don't be sophisticated. Just dump it out. What is every possible headline option that you can come up with within a given period of time? And then write it. Put it out there. And then start to curate it. This goes back to that quote about how copywriting is an assembly process. You're assembling the raw materials for your headline by writing 25 of them. Once you have your 25 headlines, more than likely they're all pretty bad, but you're going to see nuggets. You're going to see pieces. There's a phrase here, a word there that works out well. Great. Grab those, move them over, get them out of the garbage, separate them. When you have them, look at what those ingredients are, and then write 5 more headlines. But restrict yourself to the ingredients, the good pieces that you got out of the 25. Write the 5. Look at the 5. They're probably a lot better than the first 25, but they're probably still not all that great. Again, do some curation, do some editing, some pattern analysis. What are the phrases that are jumping out? What is the language that you're saying, oh man, that's so good? Grab that and then mull with it, sit with it, play with it. And from those 5 and the best ingredients of those 5, then write the one headline. And then when it comes to your hooks, it's the same thing. When it's a subject, whether it's a subject line or whether it's the first sentence in body copy for a digital ad, doesn't matter what it is, you're trying to persuade someone, you got to hook their attention, right? The headline does that, but so does the hook in the body copy. How do you write that? Same thing. Don't write it once, write it a bunch of times. Write it a lot. Write it until you're sick of writing it, until you run out of time, and then go through and edit it. This is a curation process. And most of you who are watching this probably are already using AI tools. Good copywriting can use AI, but AI doesn't do the copywriting. AI puts the bricks together. AI gives us the pieces, but it has to be your understanding of the audience, your empathy for them, your knowing who they are, the lives that they lead, the problems they experience. Knowing these things allows you to curate those headlines that AI is writing into that smaller chunk of 5, and then to curate that again into the next chunk. Don't let AI write for you, because you're just gonna get the same bad copy that everyone else gets too. Every blog is gonna start off with, in the world of, or in the realm of, or in the industry of, or whatever. They're all having that same trope, that same pattern, because AI is just lowest common denominator copywriting. You can do better than that. Start by writing a bunch of headlines. Narrow it down. And the same thing with your hook. With the hook, it's a little bit different though, because in some ways you want to do a little bit of backwards induction. Starting with what is the behavior that you need from them, right? What is the specific type of attention you need and what are you going to do with it? And then work backwards from that. What is the language that you use? Again, write a whole bunch of words, write a bunch of different hooks, and then narrow them down sequentially over through piece, narrow it down until eventually you get to the really good hook. That's how the good copy gets written. This is how do headlines and hooks. This is copywriting, so we also have to persuade people. I mean, ultimately, this is about persuasion, right? There are proven persuasion techniques. Scarcity. It is incredible how much people will buy something right now because it's scarce. And a great example of that, look at some of the Crocs. Crocs had a deal, cross-branding with Balenciaga. They had a very limited number of shoes available. Sold out in minutes. Why'd they sell it in minutes? Because there were limited shoes available. If there were unlimited shoes available, they probably wouldn't have sold out. Not just because it was unlimited, but because it wouldn't have been so desirable. Scarcity moves product. Scarcity moves people. Social proof is another persuasion technique. We believe what others say. Same thing with authority. If you are running an e-commerce platform, you're selling something, having some sort of social proof or authoritative proof, like, as reviewed in GQ or as noted in National Geographic, if you can point to these authoritative places and say, look at what they said about us, man, people are going to believe that. They're going to be very heavily persuaded by it. This is copywriting, so persuasion is in the end what we're doing. And there are lots of proven persuasion techniques. And I'm going to touch on just a few here, but ones that work really, really well, starting with scarcity. People will buy even when they don't necessarily feel compelled to buy because of scarcity. And we see this with some of the crossovers, like Stanley Cups has been doing some crossovers with other brands, and they have these limited releases. This particular Humbler, we only have 500 copies available. They sell in minutes. Why? Because there's only 500. If they had 5,000 available, they wouldn't sell out in minutes. Not because there's 5,000, but because that scarcity isn't there. We don't feel like they're special, so we don't feel like we need to buy them. Scarcity moves, particularly when it comes to product, but it can also help move services too. We have 30 slots available for the summer for your pool installation, and then we're done. People are going to be a lot more motivated to buy a pool when they know there's only 30 slots than if there's no scarcity at all. The same thing for social proof. We'll buy something when we see someone else talk about how good it is, when we see someone else tell stories about how their lives are benefited from it. But then there's also authority. We defer to authority. When someone or something, for example, Consumer Reports, says this laundry detergent is the best laundry detergent according to our tests, it sells a lot of laundry detergent. Why? Because we believe in the authority of Consumer Reports. They do all these tests. They do a lot of work to build up their credibility so that when they say this is the best, people believe it. These are the tools for persuasion. And these are the things that we can bring in easily to the stories that we need to tell to get people to buy. These things also touch on optimizing copy for conversions. Touching on those stories, those testimonials, positions of authority, these are things that we can use to help make those conversions happen, whatever kind of conversion it is that you need. Now, some conversion killers to watch out for. And this is going to be a really hard one for you writers out there, like me. Too much copy. Less is more. Working with an economy of words wins. Working with too many words doesn't. People get lost. Sometimes we need lots of copy. Sometimes we need pages of copy. When it's some sort of a long, in-depth proposal that's going to be reviewed by a committee of people who have to make sure that each of them are going to see the requirements that they believe are important and satisfied, yep, you're going to need a lot of copy. But when you're selling to consumers, or even in a lot of B2B copy, people skim. Help them skim. Keep it simple, keep it short, keep it to the point, and pull on the lever that you need so that they feel the feels that you need them to feel in order to buy. We've covered some techniques, some conversion optimization. We've covered the role of emotions and audience. We've covered a lot at this point. Thank you for paying attention for so long. So let's take a minute to talk about integrating that brand with our copywriting. I mentioned earlier about the importance of archetype. Knowing your brand's archetype tells you what kind of personality your brand has, and knowing that personality tells you how to bring it in as a character into these stories. It is so important to be consistent in the voice and tone of your brand, especially if you have a lot of exposure to your audience. It's a little bit of a continuum. The more exposure you have to your audience, the more important that consistency is. The less exposure you have to your audience, the less important it is. So if you have huge media buys, if you have a big brand presence, then you must make sure that you're consistent. You need to make sure that your copy is aligned with your brand identity. This is where brand guidelines are key. And I don't mean a style guide, because a lot of people think that brand guidelines are a style guide. I mean a brand strategy and a messaging strategy. A North Star, a guidebook that you can use, that everyone can use to know this is our tone, this is our voice. These are the specific stories that we need to be telling to overcome objections and to get in people's head to get them to buy. Those types of brand guidelines are incredibly powerful tools to make sure that you stay aligned with your brand identity. Those story architectures, these are the stories that define that brand personality, right? That bring that archetype to life, that make it living and breathing and engaging with the world around them. And you can integrate that into copy. I would argue that it actually makes writing copy a lot easier. Knowing what your archetype is does a lot to tell you how you should be doing the writing. Story architecture or brand guidelines, there's different labels for it, but ultimately knowing the messaging strategy of the brand strategy, specifically what are those key supporting stories that you need to be packaging and telling over and over again to overcome audience objections and compel them to buy, these things must be consistent. This is how you bring your brand archetype to life. This is how you build the copy. And I would argue when you have these things, this is what makes it easier to build good copy. By having all of these different tools that you can pick words from, pick ideas from here and there, and then bring them together, and then make them gel into those coherent, simple, sticky stories that generate the leads and generate the conversions that we're ultimately looking for in the marketing. I was talking earlier about signaling and how important signaling is. This is for you. We get you. We validate you. Your experience makes sense to us. We understand. That's important, but you gotta do it with a light touch. Too much jargon, too many buzzwords, people don't believe you anymore, and now you're just shouting at them. That kind of stuff will alienate people. You wanna be clear, you wanna be concise. Brilliant writing is with an economy of words. It's like Mark Twain said, "I'm sorry that the letter is so long, I didn't have time to make a short one." It's overuse that we have to watch out for. Also, please be so careful and considerate of the audience's perspective. We can't demean them. We can't look down on them. We can't reduce them to numbers. We can't treat them like they just are something on a spreadsheet or these conversions that we need to hit our metrics and our goals. That's not it. When we're writing copy, you got to leave all that behind. These are real people. These are real people with real problems. And your product or your service is going to help them. It's going to transform them. It's going to make their world better. You need to write to that. Don't write to the number. Write to the human. Embrace their perspective. This is audience-centric writing. The more that you understand them and their experience, the more that you can get alongside them, walk in their shoes, the more that you keep their needs and desires front and center, the better you're going to do. So much bad copywriting is bad because it's just ignoring the audience's perspective. It's someone who's out of touch, someone who just doesn't get it. And the worst part is the audience sees it. You know? Sometimes they still buy because they just need the thing. You know? They just have the necessity for it. But you can do better than that. We can do better than that. Be careful about that consistency in brand voice. It's so easy for it to wander, especially when you have different people touching different tactics. One person's doing social, one person's doing web, one person's doing scripts. Or could be the same person, but they're writing at different times of day in different states of mind. Be consistent with your brand voice. Use brand guidelines, use messaging strategy, use brand strategy. Create these touch points, make the documentation. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt, but actually write out, this is how we communicate. This is what our archetype is. This is the personality of our brand. These are the kinds of words and language that we use. For every client, I literally create a little mini library that we put in their documentation of approved words and phrases, hooks, headlines, the different things that are generated over time. It grows and grows and grows, and we share that with the client. Does this make sense to you? Do you agree with this? And then they say, yes, we know that it's good. They know that it's good. And we can use that to build off of. At the same time, though, we can look at that body and we can ask ourselves, is this consistent? Are we them? Are we clear? Are we consistent in that tone? Is it making sense? By avoiding the overuse of jargon and buzzwords, making the point not to alienate your audience, but instead embrace their perspective. Put yourself in line with them. Get in their shoes as best as you can and maintain as consistent a brand voice as you possibly can. These are those traps to avoid. And if you can avoid these and tell really good stories with an economy of words, then your copy is going to be brilliant. And I'm going to want to read it. Thank you for joining me on this little masterclass on copywriting. I hope it was helpful to you. As always, you can go to our website and access our resources, or you can just fill out the form if you want to ask me or anyone else on our team any questions about anything copy related. Thank you.